Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
All right, guys, what's up? It's the GSMC Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. Me and Brice are doing this remotely. Usually we come together and do this, but as you know, the rest of the world are trying to practice social distancing, and to help everybody out, it's just best that we do it apart, even though, Brice doesn't live too far away from me, funny enough.
Yeah.
Here we are. Brice, how you doing, man? How's my mom thinks she saw you at Aldi. Were you at Aldi the other day?
No, I have not been at Aldi this entire week.
Then I guess she's seeing stuff. I don't know. Maybe
Listen,
she wanted to see.
A lot of people, I feel like I look like a lot of people, and that's why I guess my look is kind of like, if you see something similar to me, it's like, oh, that's Brice. I'm like, no, that's not me at all. But yeah, I'm doing good though, man. I'm doing good. I'm just getting through it, man. Grinding through this trying time in all of our lives.
Yeah, it's
and
unprecedented amount of video game playing has been going on right now, man. There's nothing else going on.
Yeah, basically, that's all you can. Hey, this may be all off subject, but a lot of players in the basketball league make a lot of Twitch channels because of this. Because they ain't got nothing else better to do, so it's like, well, might as well make a Twitch.
Everybody's playing the new Call of Duty, trying to make some. Mm-hmm. Now everybody's trying to find the next way to make money, and they're streaming because of they're athletes, so people care about them, and they'll look at anything they do.
Exactly.
Athlete. But
yes, sir.
The rundown for today, we have Tom Brady. We can talk about that coming up. Some NFC South stuff, our favorite moves thus far this offseason, our least favorite moves, the draft, and we're going to do our usual division breakdown. So to start off, Tom Brady signs a 2-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Actually, I'm pretty sure he signed this deal the day this podcast came out last week. So we barely missed it. But Tom Brady, he said goodbye to the Patriots in a Instagram fashion, like we probably would expect him to. Even if he meant he was going to come back, he was probably going to do it through Instagram. But how do you feel about this? You are a Falcons supporter. I am a Saints supporter, and not only am I a Saints supporter, I am a Drew Brees truther. And knowing that the enemy has joined even more of an enemy of a team is just interesting to me. How do you feel about having the GOAT, quote unquote, in the division?
I understand why Tom did it. I mean, honestly, this is probably one of the best situations that Tom had available to him. He was not wanted in New England by Bill Belichick, and he was just like, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to move on. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wanted him and gave him what he feels like he needs to still be successful these potentially last 2 years of his career, since he wants to play until he's 45. And, it's going to be tough. Obviously, the Falcons have never beaten Tom Brady. So obviously we'll have 2 chances to change that this year. Obviously I know everybody's going to look forward to the Breeze Brady matchup, the 2 40-year-old plus quarterbacks going at it. It's going to make everything really interesting. And then we have Teddy Bridgewater. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously everybody's expecting Tampa Bay to be a Super Bowl team this year. Their season ticket prices have gone up dramatically since he joined. Tampa Bay is about to be booming this football season just because of the arrival of one man. And that's really legitimately the only move they legitimately made all this offseason was that move. And now it just shows you I feel like the upgrade from Jameis Winston to Tom Brady puts them right there at the top echelon of the league, like everybody else.
Yeah, and it's basically been the death of Jameis Winston for the most part, because at this point nobody was going to take. I think Tampa Bay was the only team that really was considering taking Jameis Winston in this whole thing, and now that they've gotten Tom Brady, Jameis is kind of left out to dry, much as the same as Cam Newton, because I don't know if any teams have any interest in these two guys. And it's crazy to think that a guy who led the league in touchdowns and second in passing yards is not going to find a team or not re-signed by his same team. You know, I said this in my college show that comes out today. I did a little rundown of Jameis Winston, and I don't think we've seen a guy as talented as Jameis just not be seen after, because it's not like he's bad. That's the crazy thing. Jameis is not a bad quarterback, so to speak.
I mean, you could say he's better than half in the league if you wanted to.
It's just that I guess for the money that he'd be asking for, and his decision making is some of the worst I've seen. It's crazy. Two of the worst decision makers with the football are in free agency, essentially, or Cam's still looking for a trade, but if they can't trade him, they're just going to cut him. So I've never seen this before, honestly, to where two guys who have league talent, like starter quality talent, but Cam is just hurt, right? But even when he's healthy, his decision making isn't the best. Jameis is the worst decision maker in football, bar none. Are you going to
call him the worst decision maker in history?
I doubt that. I don't think he's the worst in history, maybe. But as far as someone with the talent, where he should be and what he's capable of, and his decision making has just been so bad. It just hasn't improved since college. And that's the thing. When he came out of Florida State, it was just like, his decision making isn't the best. And he played with a superior talent. Like Florida State, the ACC that year had the most out of any conference of first-round guys selected that year. Not to say all the first-round guys panned out anywhere, but, it's a good thing for the ACC. That was back when that was right before the whole playoffs thing came around.
Yeah, well, don't forget, the first year we remember Jameis playing college, they had the BCS, and he didn't throw a lot of picks that year.
Yeah.
The second year was the first year of the playoff, and that's when he threw a bunch of picks, and then they got blown up by Oregon.
Right.
So, what you're saying is completely right, man. Ever since that last year of college, it's almost like this man doesn't know how to make good reads anymore, which is affecting him now.
Right.
So it's just kind of like, I feel like in Cam's situation, like I said, it's health. And then his health, we feel like has affected his play. Because, Cam's one of those guys I don't view as someone who's going to sit here and just start throwing all over. He could throw it. He's good arm talent, but he's not a guy like you look at like a Brady or somebody like that who's just going to pick you apart from the passing game because he has a different skill set than they do.
Right.
Jameis,
we never saw Cam as a guy who was going to pick apart a defense, really like the most elite quarterbacks. We just assumed that in the right system of using Cam, he could reach his true potential.
Which is MVP level. He's been there before. Yeah,
we saw it one time. And, now a lot of people using revisionist history saying that team wasn't that good anyway. And the league might have been at a watered down state. And, it's just a tough go, especially when you lose to a guy like Peyton Manning, who literally could not throw the football anymore by the time he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true.
But I just find it's going to be a real interesting ride this season. Whenever it does, whenever we find out how it's going to play out with the whole coronavirus delaying and scheduling and all that stuff. But eventually, we hope to see some football be played. And not only has Tampa Bay catapulted itself into contention, now they have a lot of, I suppose, expectations now that they did not have coming out of the season. And, I don't think I'm crazy to think that, a few, like 6 less picks from Jameis Winston gets them in the playoffs last year. So their team is pretty fairly constructed to win. It's just, they had a lot of bad beats over the years. And last year in particular, they have 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers, 2 top 10 guys, really, if you look at it. Mike Evans is somebody, and that's the thing. Jameis had all the tools around him to be successful. And typically he was, to an extent, he definitely had some numbers, but he had he had, I think, 42 turnovers if you would include fumbles or something like that. So it's not good. The list of guys that he's included with most interceptions, Jameis had more interceptions than Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and I think some other quarterback combined this year. It was just bad. It's insane.
Yeah, exactly. And I just wanted to add in there, one thing we also can credit James for is he got Cameron Brate and he got Chris Godwin paid. Because remember, before Chris Godwin really blew up, we didn't know who he wasn't a lot of expectations. But then he ended up being Jameis's favorite target over Mike Evans. We knew Mike Evans was good. We didn't know if Chris Godwin was good. And Jameis basically made him look like a number 1 receiver. And remember, Tampa Bay had OJ and Cameron. He never throws the ball to OJ Howard. That's why he's horrible in fantasy situations, But Cameron Brate, he's going to get the majority of those, throws as a tight end. So he did also benefit some people's career,
This is also very true. But let's go ahead and take a small break, and then we'll get into the rest of the NFC South as they've all made some pretty significant moves.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, Tom Brady was not the only big move in the NFC South, as the NFC South has been extremely active in signing free agents and making some moves. So I think the first thing we should probably talk about is, outside of Tom Brady, is the Falcons. They have been very active since they dropped a lot of guys. So Vic Beasley did not return. They waived Devontae Freeman. They waived Desmond Trufant, if I'm correct. And with that, all that money freed up, they signed a few people. They signed just recently, Laquan Treadwell. I remember him being drafted by Minnesota. It did not work out. Did he end up on the Patriots for a little while? I think. I
can't remember. He might have. Obviously didn't stay that long.
No, but, they ended up getting Todd Gurley for a 1-year, $5 million deal, which a lot of people seem to. I'm not sure how I feel about it personally. If this was 2 years ago, I would have been like, of course this wouldn't happen 2 years ago, but, if the talent was not there and 2 years ago this happened, I would have been like, oh wow, this is insane. The Falcons are getting away with robbery. Now I'm just like, well, this is a big name. He was at arguably the best player in football 2 years ago before, he had basically arthritis essentially in his knees. And that, I've never seen a harsher decline in one player really ever. He's 26 in the prime of his career, and he looks like he's 35 trying to still play football. It's bad. I'm not sure what you guys are going to get out of him but it's a 1-year deal, so it's not a large commitment, but hey, UGA fans are ecstatic. Falcons fans are pretty happy about this. What says you, sir? How do you feel?
I mean, I feel like you just have to use him in a limited role. Gurley can still do stuff. He can still score. He can still catch. He can still do all of it. You just can't. Before 2 years ago, he was like the workhorse of the Rams. You just can't have him do that. With the Falcons, they have 3-4 running backs I expect them to use this year anyway, so he'll just be a part of a whole rotation of running backs. That's why I'm completely okay with the move. Obviously, this is a great PR move for, like I said, for the Georgia Bulldog fans. Oh, we finally, got somebody in Georgia playing for the Falcons, because they complain that we never draft any Georgia players or anything like that. So we brought one of the ones that were very loved at Georgia back to Atlanta. And for me, I'm okay with this. Like I said, not paying him that much. We'll get what we can out of him. He can still be a threat at sometimes. We just have to, like I said, not overuse him. He'll be sharing the backfield with Brian Hill, Ito Smith, Condre Allison, and we'll go with that. So I think listen, if somehow, Todd Gurley decided to seem more like his old self, that's fantastic. But if not, that's also okay. We just need him to be serviceable. That's all we need from him. And if they can get that, they should be fine at the running back position moving forward.
Yeah, I would suppose so. I would just assume that I guess they just had to waive Devontae. So now we have to wait and see where Devontae goes, if he gets picked up, for how much money. But I'll keep saying it, but the running back market is horrible right now. If you have your son in sports playing running back, you're doing it wrong. Either he has to, I don't know how tall he is, but you got to get him to do something else, because he's not going to get the bag that you'd want him to get, at least that he deserves, in my opinion. Because I think running back, they do so much, but they get paid so little because of the return in value. It's just, you're not going to have a guy run the ball for, as long as the quarterback is going to be a quarterback for your team, or as long as a wide receiver can play for a team, let alone a quarterback. So it's just, no one has successfully been like, you know what, this deal made sense and we liked it. Todd Gurley's deal was ridiculous when he was signed it. It made no sense. The Rams have signed some of the worst deals in the last, 5-6 years of football. The Gurley deal is bad, right? For multiple reasons, but the Jared Goff deal is absurd. He wasn't that, we just, from after a year of being considered a bust, he was not good, set up to fail, whatever you wanted to say it. In a year span, of course, he did look good. He looked reworked, looked better, but you give him that extension, that much money?
Ethan, the thing about it is that's the quarterback market. That's what you pay a quarterback. If he's going to start, regardless of his average, that's what you pay him. You saw Ryan Tannehill got. That's just how it is. That's just really how it is.
But Ryan Tannehill played better than I feel more confident from what I've seen from Tannehill over his career than I would Jared Goff, because now I don't know what he is. I don't know who he is or what he's capable of. Besides, not only that, but I also feel like the Sean McVay little offense has not clicked the way it's supposed to, primarily because Todd Gurley was not the same. If you don't have the MVP Todd Gurley, that offense just did not look as potent as it usually was. Yeah, that's why. Because Jared Goff's maybe just one of those quarterbacks. You just need to make sure you have a running game, and then he can kill you off play action. If you're telling him to throw it 60 times and win it, that's probably when you're going to get the worser of the Goff side of his entire talent. Because it's not like Goff can't do it, but you definitely don't want him. You don't want to ask him to do it if you don't have to. You know what I'm saying?
So I think that's kind of why that situation was what it was. Like I said, everybody says it was a bad contract when Gurley got it. Obviously, if Gurley was still playing at that level, we probably wouldn't say that now. But since he fell off, it's like, all right, yeah, you're ruining the running back market. Ezekiel didn't help the situation either. And if people forget this, David Johnson also signed a big contract a couple of years ago. And look what he's done the last 2 years.
Exactly.
He's ruined the running back market. So, it's not looking good.
No, it's been bad. I know the Cowboys are not happy with that Zeke contract. They're probably going to rework it. I would put money that eventually in like next year, the Cowboys will rework that deal. They're going to rework it to move up some money, especially if they're good, so to speak. They're going to move some money around. And he's the first person I think of. That is going to have to restructure.
Yeah,
so,
I feel that.
But, it's just crazy. We got to get to the rest of them real quick. But, the Panthers, they got Teddy Bridgewater, of course, at quarterback. They've got your guy, the XFL.
Yes,
PJ.
Sir. PJ Walker, baby.
He's the only one.
He's surprised when he beat him out.
Out of everybody in sports who's basically lost in the past 2 weeks. Everybody's losing. Fans, athletes. The only person that's maybe have won is PJ.
Yes, sir. PJ, I swear. Hey, he becomes the backup quarterback. Better watch out.
Hey, bro. He played long enough. He played just long enough to prove what he's capable of, and he didn't play long enough to show what he can't do. So all we know is that PJ Walker was an undefeated man in the XFL, and he never wavered from playing. He had maybe one game, but every other game he was pretty good to pretty great compared to everybody else on the field.
Would have been the XFL MVP if the season didn't get canceled.
By far, he was the Mahomes of the XFL right there. But they signed him. Cam is on his way out either via trade or free. They're going to let him walk. They're going to release him. The Saints went and did some things in the offseason. They went and got, I almost said Emmanuel Mudiay. That is not his name. Emmanuel Sanders.
How you feel about that signing? I know y'all were looking for a number 2. Are you happy for it? Do you feel like, offense about to open up even more now? Like, how are you feeling?
Michael Thomas is, Emmanuel Sanders has never been this open since the, what was his name? Who also played for Georgia, by the way? Demaryius Thomas. He hasn't been this open probably since the Peyton Manning, Demaryius Thomas days. Remember Demaryius Thomas? He used to be a number 1 wide receiver, a real stud.
Yeah, but never,
Ever since then, I don't think he's ever been as open as he should be because he hasn't played with a true number 1 guy, and he's not really a number 1 in himself. So this is a big move, not only for the Saints offense in general of having a guy who can get up there, get some passes. His route running is spectacular, and the Saints desperately needed a down the field threat to go along with Michael Thomas. This frees this makes it a lot less harder to move the ball. It frees up Jared Cook. It frees up Alvin Kamara, frees up Latavius Murray. Just everybody eats from this, essentially. So it's a good move for the Saints. It's the right move. They didn't go out there and overspend on a wide receiver, especially since they don't know what everybody's kind of on a similar track where everything is kind of all in on 2 years, but you don't want to overspend to be all in for 2 years because this is the last 2 years of Drew. They brought back defensive back in what was his name? Wow, Malcolm Jenkins. I almost said Michael Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins is back. For the Saints, where Sean Payton didn't actually want him to leave in the first place. But he regretted that move ever since, and now they have been reunited, so to speak. And that's going to help shore up the defense, I would assume, because Von Bell.
Veteran leadership.
Right. Von Bell will probably not return now because we just don't have the money to pay him. But we still have Janoris. Janoris Jenkins is still there. And we also, I believe we got another defensive back as well on a 1-year deal who, I'm blanking on his name at the moment, But everybody's kind of retooling around the NFC South, man. So we'll talk more about them next week when I guess that's a spoiler alert for the remainder of the podcast. Our division breakdown today is on the NFC West, but next week we'll talk about the South in more detail as we are quite familiar with that territory division in the NFL. But let's take another break and we'll talk about our favorite off-season moves.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, so coming back, we're going to do our favorite moves thus far of the off season. We're going to probably try and do 3 each, before we have to take another break, but let's try and get 3 in. So I'll start first. Number 1, the Stephon Diggs trade to get him to Buffalo to get my man Josh Allen some help over there in Bills Mafia Nation. This is seeing how the AFC East has come to form now. Granted that Tom Brady is out, the Patriots are kind of in a weird place. This is the time to strike, and I think the Bills knew, because this trade happened before Tom Brady was announced that he wasn't coming back. So this is the time. It's time to put it in. It's time to go ahead and get active, and the Bills are trying to really make a run at this playoff, and I have to applaud them for it. It's a brilliant move. Ties a fairly young wide receiver with a young quarterback so they can develop together and make some magic happen, man. I'm excited for this. All right, go ahead, Brice. Say yours.
All right. Well, one of my first moves that I really enjoy, the ones I'm going to talk about are more team signings than just an individual player. But the first, team that I really like their moves was the Cleveland Browns. I think them signing Austin Hooper and also getting the best right tackle on the market was very important to what they're trying to do into the future. Obviously, if you watch Cleveland, one of their weaknesses was their offensive line, and that was what really also contributed to Baker's regression last year. And obviously, getting one of the best offensive linemen on the market helps solidify the right side of the offensive line, and I'm sure they'll address the other parts of the offensive line in the draft. And as their new head coach is obviously trying to bring together a good offensive line to protect Baker Mayfield so they can get the most out of all their skilled position players. And then adding a guy like Austin Hooper, I think, helps, because we know if you watch Atlanta and Austin Hooper can be a very dangerous tight end. Him and David Njoku could be one of the best 2 tight end duos in all of the NFL. Again, that's why it's very crucial that they signed the offensive line of Jack Coughlin and they got in Austin Hooper. Because everything, if they can get the offensive line right, everything is set up for Cleveland to have a top 10 offense in the NFL next season, in my opinion.
Everything was set up for them to have a top 10 offense last season, let alone what they've done this offseason. Now it's just what is it that they do? What do they do?
I mean, listen, that's why they brought the new guy in. Everybody says Freddie Kitchen was not a good head coach. If he ends up being a good head coach, you would expect to get more out of the players, I would be assuming.
I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense on the idea of, for me, the thing about Cleveland is I can never, all these moves thus far seem logical to an standpoint. I don't think they needed to go and get Austin Hooper personally. I think that was, they could have spread that money elsewhere. I don't think they needed to. I think that was I guess they had the luxury to go get him, but I don't know if Baker Mayfield needed another target to not throw the football to. But we just have to, like anything with Cleveland, you just have to wait and see what happens. I've been wrong before. I did not think that, all the moves that LA did, this is basketball related, all the moves that LA did to supplement LeBron around AD was going to mean anything. And they were the top seed in the Western Conference this year. So, I've been wrong plenty of times on moves like this. So what do I know? But here we are. So, okay, yours is Cleveland. Number 2, for me, the Chargers had to choose. They could not get both, at least not for the money that I guess the ties, considering what money that Melvin Gordon ended up receiving, I have to assume that the ties were severed enough in Los Angeles now for the Chargers that they didn't want to bring Melvin Gordon back because of the holdout and how it did not help them in the long run, and they could not reach an agreement. So at the end of the day, the Chargers went out because I think they got the better back for their system that they like to run. So here we are. The Chargers got Austin Eckler, and I like Austin Eckler a lot. He's a good story, was undrafted, was not making any money. Now he's a multi-millionaire, so to speak, on a really team-friendly deal, for the Chargers. And they don't have to deal with the headache of the idea that, even though Melvin Gordon was considered, an elite back in this league, at least the year before last year, before he got hurt, they did not have to pay him elite level money for 2 different reasons. One, he was not the same productivity after coming back from the holdout. 2, they didn't need him as much after the holdout. So the holdout, all that proved that Austin Eckler could handle the load. An undrafted guy could handle the same load as a guy who was taken in one of the first 3 rounds of football. Mm-hmm. So what does that tell you? Of course, Melvin Gordon ended up going to Denver for, I believe, $16 million for 2 years or something of that degree. Mm-hmm. It's just, you could never have thought, I never saw that one coming. I never saw Melvin Gordon getting that little of money. So it just goes to show you.
You do know that still puts him in the top 5 in running backs making in terms of per year salary in the NFL.
Which is absolutely insanity. The money for running backs is poor. And that's all I have to say. That is it.
Listen, all I say is wait for the Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley contracts. He'll be out of there real quick.
Saquon is already making top dollar. He's probably the highest paid running back in the NFL.
I mean, he was a first round pick. He was a high first round pick, though. So he's just making that first round money.
Yeah, I'm saying.
But the Giants are going to pay him when that time comes.
No, not the money that he got now. I don't think so.
So he's going to get paid less than his rookie deal?
He might get an extension, but it's not going to be. It'll probably be one of those things where he gets paid up front and then they move the money around year to year in the backside. Yeah. And just
turn that's like a popular thing to do.
And turn it into a signing bonus year after year instead of, just being on salary to get it off the books. So I don't know, but congrats, Chargers. You won.
Yeah, I got you. Well, my number 2, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles when they made the trade for Darius Big Play Slay. Obviously, if you've watched the Eagles these last few years, one of their biggest issues consistently has been their secondary. They have struggled to get a decent secondary. You could always throw on them. And they really, I guess you could say, thought they could have had some potential number 1 corners, but really never did. And you really can't say they've had a number 1 corner since maybe Asante Samuel, maybe. So obviously picking up Darius Slay, who was one of the best corners in the NFL from Detroit, is a big deal for them. That helps solidify one half of their secondary, and then they can figure out what they're going to do with the other half. I think that was important. Also, them getting Javon Hargrave, one of the best interior linemen on the market, also helped. as obviously the Eagles know. I feel like the Eagles are that one team based off last year. You made the playoffs with a depleted roster. If you can stay healthy, you make these improvements, why can't we be considered a Super Bowl contender this year if Carson Wentz, and that's what everybody hopes on. Carson Wentz, if he can stay healthy, why wouldn't they be in the Super Bowl competition at the end of the day?
That's fair. I have them coming out of the NFC East this coming season, as they were projected to last year, and injuries really derailed their season to another level, really. But I have to believe that they can bounce back. They got a lot of rest right now. Everybody got a lot of rest.
Exactly. They don't got no workout programs, no OTAs. Don't even have to get off the ground. They can just rest up and get 100% ready for next season and try to run it back and hope for a more successful, less challenging season.
Right.
From an injuries perspective.
All right, let's do a little rapid fire real quick to get to these last three or these last two. Number 3 for me is Emmanuel Sanders. I think that's probably one of the more underrated moves because unless you really understand if you don't follow the Saints and you only see them lose in the playoffs to Minnesota, then you really don't understand why this is big time for their offense as a whole. I know as a Falcons fan, you are not happy about this. You're trying to stay professional, but I understand many Falcons fans hit my lineup in the last few days, and they have mentioned their disapproval of the Saints doing this. And it's because their offense already is fairly strong in the regular season, but they have times when they go up against the right defense and the right scheme, right coach, they can get they can get stale because Michael Thomas just gets double teamed all the time, and they don't have another guy to come out there and really have an effect on the offense. Ted Ginn is not the same. Drew Brees' arm is not the same, I should say, for Ted Ginn, as Ted Ginn is more of a deep threat rather than a route runner. He's gotten better, but he's not the best. But Emmanuel Sanders is known for his route running. It's still very fast and is really able to make some plays with the football, as we saw in the championship game. In fact, if their quarterback, his previous quarterback, was able to get the ball to him, they win the Super Bowl, essentially. So you saw how open he was there, and he was essentially playing by himself. Out there in wide receiver land, they did not have the best wide receiver group out there. They were very much a run heavy team, relied on the play action. So here we go. Drew Brees has another weapon to throw to, and he's not going to be somebody who he feels like he has to, I guess, groom into being a better wide receiver than what he is. We already know what he's capable of, so I think that's a quality move.
Yeah, I could definitely agree on that. It actually brings up an interesting question, just like a little quick thing. In the NFC South, 3 teams all have 2 receivers each who some people could consider all number 1 receivers on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Saints, and Falcons. But that's just another topic. But I'm going to get to my number 3. My number 3 is the Falcons signing Dante Fowler Jr. because obviously, as you know, the Vic Beasley experiment failed. Dante Fowler, so far in his career, has technically had a better career than Vic Beasley. Obviously, the Falcons have always had an issue of pass rush, and obviously signing a guy like him helps basically fill that hole that Vic Beasley filled or left get there. Obviously, we still have Tack McKinley. Obviously, he's had injury issues, but if he can get healthy, he's shown flashes of pass rushing ability. And I feel like with what's going on, it's just they feel like coaching has been their problem the last couple of years. If they can get the max out of Dante Fowler, if he can give him about 10 sacks, and, you know, that's probably, you're probably feeling pretty good about it. Because I don't feel like the money we gave him was too over the top. Because we didn't give him Robert Quinn money. You know, we gave him less than that. And for what we're going to ask from him, what we want from him, I think it'll be a very efficient and effective signing for the Atlanta Falcons, as obviously he's going to have to get after Drew Brees and Tom Brady in the NFC South and hopefully cause some havoc in the backfield.
That is crazy. The only, you know what's interesting? The NFC South, like as we wrap this up, NFC South is the only division I think that if you wanted to be a defensive tackle, this is the one. If you wanted to be a defensive end, this is the one. You don't got nobody in there that can move no more. nobody in there start as the quarterback can really move around with the football. So you just got all the time in the world to go out there and get them. No more running around.
For that is Teddy, but the team overall isn't that good. So at the very moment,
right? Teddy is not a mover. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of things Teddy Bridgewater is. He's not a big mobile guy. At least not as you would like him to be. But let's take another break and we'll talk about who our least favorite moves.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, baby. All right. So, Brice, here we go. I think we should get the worst out the way. We're doing our least favorite move of the offseason thus far. I think I'm going to be very in line with a lot of our listeners here and a lot of football fans around the world when I say those Texans went and got robbed blind. They were robbed blind by the Arizona Cardinals, and gosh darn it, I just don't understand what that boy Bill O'Brien is doing over there. He went there and he got a ham sandwich and a pretty much washed up running back to wash it down with. I just don't understand why you give one of the best wide receivers in football. I can't comprehend why you'd give one of the best wide receivers in football for a bologna sandwich and a glass of milk. That's just not smart GM, and he shouldn't be the GM of the football team. He's barely the head coach. Now you got Deshaun sending cryptic tweets. I don't even understand Twitter, but he's sending scripted tweets, cryptic messages. I don't know if Deshaun's coming back. Now the whole team is, they're quarantined just like the rest of the NFL, and nobody's having a good time. So that has to be the worst trade I've seen in my lifetime. And I've been watching football for a long time now, boy. All right, that's it.
Yeah, that was a gem right there.
I just don't understand why this happened. And not to mention, you see Stephon Diggs, compared to what Minnesota got, I couldn't imagine. I would be so livid if I was a Texans fan.
I'd be like, how do we give away our best receiver for literally nothing?
That's basically what it was. It was literally nothing.
I remember people described the trade. They got a second and they awkwardly threw in a 4th round pick too to make it seem better. And then they gave David Johnson on his terrible contract, who's washed up. Oh man.
Every single top wide receiver ever been traded, I think ever, has always received a 1st round pick in return. Besides this one. This is the only one. Brandon Cooks was traded twice. Both times received a 1st round pick. Both times. They were late, but 1st round picks. This don't make no sense. All right, give me yours, because I'm tired of talking about this.
I'm weak. All right. So one of the moves I didn't particularly like this offseason was what the Indianapolis Colts did at the quarterback position, because I feel like you're getting a washed up quarterback and you think you're going to win now with Phillip Rivers, who was second in turnovers last year behind Jameis Winston, and you just think, oh, we're in win now mode. We're going to now win because we have Phillip Rivers as our quarterback. You were better off going after either Cam. I'd rather Jameis. I'd rather you kind of make a run at Tom Brady. Somebody else, but Phillip Rivers. Because here's the issue with that argument. The Chargers have talent, and they had a losing season multiple times with this man the last couple of years, except I think 2 years ago when they went 13-3. Outside of that, we've seen what happens with that talent in San Diego. So you just think now, because it's a different team, it's the Colts. I think the Chargers' weapons are better than the Colts. Better than the Colts' weapons. And Rivers had bad time over there. Now, the only thing you may be able to say is, well, the Chargers' offensive line isn't as good as the Colts. The Colts have the top 5 offensive line. So maybe, hey, if he gets protection, Rivers might light it up, rejuvenate his career, Brett Favre, and then light it up, and then boom, Indianapolis Colts are going to be competing for a Super Bowl. But right now, I just look, that's not a good move. Rivers is the 3 things you can't be: old, immobile, and turnover prone. And you better hope the offensive line hold up, because if not, it's going to be another bad season for the Colts. And then everybody's just going to be like, why? Listen, they're keeping Jacoby Brissett, but listen, I would not be surprised if he hits the field this year. And if that happens, that Phillip Rivers experiment has failed.
Yeah. All I can think about is the game last year against the Kansas City Chiefs, where he was just slinging the football in the air. This is when he threw 7 interceptions in the last 2 of his games. And, it was just bad. He threw that one in the end zone that potentially could win the game. And you just don't understand where he was looking at. What happened? The drop off was so apparent. It was so bad. So bad, so fast. How did we let this happen as football fans? It makes me feel like we made the mistake sometimes. Almost a little bit. Not too much, but a little bit. I'm just like, how did we, as a fan base, just ignore Phillip Rivers' decline? Because it just couldn't have come this fast. He was almost on an MVP tear like a year ago, right? Or was it 2 years ago?
The year they went 13-3?
Yeah, and then this? Man, I hope he can play. Maybe he has something to prove that he can still play, and that the Chargers just was not where he wanted to be. I think as soon as they moved to LA, things had just started to look bad. And that is just the end all be all on that, I guess, in my opinion. Just don't know. I think the Chargers are still without a quarterback, correct?
Well, they're going with Tyrod Taylor right now. They said that he's going to be the starter going into this season.
Oh, give me a break.
You can win with Tyrod.
Give me a break.
Buffalo did it before. So
give me a break. Buffalo did not. They survived with Tyrod. It was not that Tyrod.
Tyrod don't make mistakes, so he didn't cost them.
He doesn't win games either. So I'm sorry to let this be breaking news. Tyrod is just not the guy. Now I have to reconsider my Austin Eckler fantasy ideas.
Listen, Tyrod gives them something different than Phillip gives them, which is a mobile guy that could help Austin Eckler.
I hope that they reconsider.
I'm sure they're still going to draft a guy. Justin Herbert going to be drafted, or whoever they decide to draft.
So Tyrod once again is the bridge quarterback for a few games.
Exactly.
And then Justin Herbert will start. That's what I'm hearing.
If the Chargers lose, yes. If they win and he's playing well, then no.
Oh, well. All righty. Good talk. All right. Here's my second one. I don't like the Broncos actually taking Melvin Gordon, and it's all for selfish reasons. It's not for football reasons. I don't like the fact that Philip Lindsay has to share the ball. I think he was going to have a better season than last year, and that's really it. That's all I have to say about it. It's a bad move for me and my fantasy efforts. I'll have to look elsewhere now. That's it.
Listen, I understand, man. I know it's rough because you got to think about the fantasy complications of all these moves, because I'm sure you'll be calculating all off season. But I guess my other at least like to move, honestly, was just the fact that the Patriots didn't re-sign Tom Brady because, listen, right now, your three quarterbacks are Cody Kessler, Jarrett Stidham, and they just signed Brian Hoyer. I don't see the Patriots winning with either of those guys. Now, listen, it's easy for us to sit here and say this. Jarrett Stidham could come in here next year and light it up and then prove us all wrong, and then we're all looking dumb. But right now, we have to go what we know, and it wasn't that great at Auburn. And, you know, with the type of team that they are, especially if the Patriots don't get any weapons, it's just like, how do you see them being better? I mean, obviously, some people think they're still going to make a different move at quarterback. Maybe they'll probably draft another guy this year. They said a couple weeks ago that's the plan, to draft a guy. So I always said Cody Kessler probably won't be there. If he is, he's going to be the odd man up.
It might be. Some people are saying that this might be the move where they trade with the Bengals to get the Red Rocket.
Now they could.
Andy Dalton.
Do that.
But
they could do that.
Maybe this is for your boy Fromm. State Fromm.
You know, I thought about it, boy. I was like, you know, I think if New England was in a warm weather city, yes. If it's cold weather and Fromm has an average arm, no. Because that man was struggling to throw deep balls at the combine. I was like, this is in a stadium. This ain't outside. So I know he ain't gonna be doing it in New England. So I said next guy after that probably would be Jacob Eason, because Jacob Eason has a big arm. And so that could be a guy New England looks at.
Wow.
Potentially.
Maybe Jacob Eason actually does get the last laugh after all.
I mean, I really don't know where Fromm's going to go in his career. I mean, he'll be a career backup of anything. I don't see him being the starting quarterback in the NFL.
Right. But let's take another break, and we're going to talk about the draft as we are actually starting to talk about it now.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, Brice, the draft is no longer going to be an event for the public for the first time in a very long time. It will be a televised event, of course, like always, but in studio, there will be no handing out, no handshaking, no hats. It's over. We might as well just not have the draft. In my opinion, it just does not feel the same. This is, I've never been this bummed out. For every news report for sports has just been not good. There has not been a good one yet, except for PJ. That's why he wins. PJ's the only winner. Only guy.
Sir. Roughnecks, baby.
I just don't know what to, imagine being an athlete right now coming out to the NFL draft. You are happy. You are excited. Your family's getting excited. I guess everybody's going to have you can't even responsibly have a house party during the draft, right? You can't have all your family members at the house. The CDC won't allow that.
All you can have is the immediate, whoever lived there already.
Right. Like, you can't even have your folks there. Like, your people that got you to where you are. Like, or you're going to get slandered on Twitter for not practicing social distancing. It's over with. This is about to be the worst. Like, this is bad. Like, I am in no mood. Today is one of the worst days I've had in a long time.
Ethan. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a very interesting experience. I'm going to be interested to see if they even put the cameras in their houses. They be like, "Oh, you got to do it from outside. We're going to see the outside the window shot of them celebrating because they don't want them in the house." Or they're going to have to do like live Skype calls or something. Every time somebody gets drafted, you Skype them or something. How do you feel about it, man? Get from your home right now, quarantine, first overall draft pick, Joe Burrow. I mean, it's going to be rough. Obviously, it won't be as exciting, I guess, as a fan, because obviously the draft has grown. Before it used to always be in the same place inside of a town hall, and they would do it now. Then they became it more of a very fan interactive experience where they put out bigger venues.
Weren't they going to be on like in Hawaii, like in the water? Like, wasn't it built?
I think so. Yes, because they were going to have a raft that they would be on as they go to the podium to get their, I guess, the jersey, the handshake, and all that.
Right, all that money. I guess they're just going to have to do it next year. You can't just waste the money, I would assume.
I think Vegas got it next year, so I think because they already got these things planned out.
Oh yeah, that's true, right?
Yeah, I think Vegas got the draft next year, so they're going to have to try to do that another time. But yeah, so that's pretty much how that's going to look. I'm sure. I said you got to think about a lot of college kids in this situation. Think about, and I'm just talking about from any sports. I like to say, think about college basketball players. They never experience. They're never going to, for this year, the ones who are one and dones or seniors. Let's say you've never experienced March Madness, you'll never experience it. You'll never even get a taste of it, basically.
Yeah, I saw Anthony Edwards. He's going to the draft. I'm like, we don't even know if you're that good. Like,
I mean, listen, basketball is weird. Out of high school, they already know you a top 5 pick, so that's just how it is right there. But in college football, think about guys who are going to the draft. They were expecting this huge draft experience, all the pro day and all the stuff, all the fanfare. They didn't get none of that. They basically just got to stay at their house and work out. And then that's why Tua said he has to send a video of him sending a workout to every team because he can't actually show them in the pro day. Like, think about that. You just got to go in your backyard and have your own pro day.
Right.
Just so you can still give out some tape for the NFL teams to see.
Exactly.
And it's not, it's just, I know that's just a very lackluster experience. You'll never feel the full experience of being drafted, Right.
It's like, Jalen Hurts, my guy, he won't have his pro day, I don't believe. He can't showcase his stuff. He's going to have to do it in the privacy and start sending videos. He's going to have to do, like, his draft stock might just stay where it's at. It was on the rise. Well, actually, before the quarantine stuff happened, Oklahoma had their pro day. So he had his time. No.
Because they remember they had their pro day beforehand.
That's true.
Because remember, he was one of the lucky ones. Now everybody else, they're out of luck. Like Burrow, he ain't gonna get it. Tua ain't gonna get it. Herbert ain't gonna get it. All them ain't gonna get it.
I mean, do we really need to see a lot? Like, the thing about the NFL is you don't need to see too much for guys that are already considered where they're going to be, guys. Right?
Yeah.
It's more about guys that can make a name for themselves. And thankfully the draft or the combine already came and went. So we saw guys in the combine that may have some ability to maneuver themselves in the draft. But private workouts are stopping now, like, of course, and all this stuff. Now it's just ridiculous. Yeah, you can't even scout anymore right now. People are not being sent around to scout. They stopped that before basically the whole country is shut down. So here we are. This is our reality. This is what we're dealing with. But more about the draft. So how can ESPN make this an entertaining product, so to speak, besides, because people are going to watch it. It's the draft, and it's going to have probably even more people to watch it because nobody's going to work, right? Mm-hmm. How long is the draft from now?
Well, it's usually at the end of April, so about probably a solid month.
Right. So in all likelihood, I don't believe we'll be out of this within a month, let alone once we're reevaluated in like a week or so. I don't think we're going to be out of this this social distancing self-quarantine state right now, as the COVID virus. There's just more and more people being discovered. There's 1,000 cases in Louisiana alone. Like, it's insane how fast it's going in certain places. So I just don't see it getting better that quickly. So that being said, Disney, the mouse, the 4-letter network, ESPN, they got to figure it out. How do you make a draft with no people entertaining? I feel like I'm going to be watching poker. Just no conversation.
You probably going to see a lot of people at home, because I was watching the news yesterday and they did the sports update, and the person who does the sports update was doing it from his house, not at the studio. That's probably what you'll see. They'll be at their house giving their analysis on every draft pick, every decision, because ain't nobody going to actually be there at the actual thing talking. They may let one person in, but that may be about it.
Right.
So
I don't know. I know Roger
with
Goodell's not going to be there, probably. Roger Goodell, where is he going to be?
Oh, he'll probably be I'm sure I don't know. He might, I don't know. I don't know where he's going to be.
Like, I just don't understand. Like, where are I guarantee you some of the more popular athletes are probably going to be on like Instagram Live while they receive the first overall, while they get their picks. Like, if I was Joe Burrow, I'd go on Instagram Live or Periscope or whatever live streaming application there is while the draft is happening, just to showcase your reaction. And that's it. You know, that's the experience. That's the closest we'll get. What about for owners? And like, you know, they used to have war rooms and where they're doing the drafting and all that. They can't do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I was interested by, because think about it, everybody has to come together to talk about who they're going to draft. So here's the thing. They could do this where they get everybody tested that's going to be in the war room, and if all of them are negative, then they're like, all right, we can all come together and still do this. Because you're going to have some type of communication with all your scouts or whoever is in that process to make these picks for 3 days. So I'm sure they're going to figure out something where they can still kind of be all interactive with each other.
They'll probably do video chat, probably, because you can't get tested if you have no symptoms. Like, if you have no symptoms, you're just wasting a test. That's why a lot of these guys, like Idris Elba, has been catching some flack because he didn't showcase any symptoms, but he still went and got tested. And all these other guys.
He tested positive. So,
yeah.
They got to be, I guess you got to make sure, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But that's just the world we live in right now. And this is not just that phrase that we all say, like, this is just the world we live in. Like, this is legitimately the world we live in right now, where I don't know how the draft is going to be successful this year. Besides the fact that people are going to be interested just to see what they come up with, what to do. Like, First Take, one of the more popular shows on ESPN, probably the most popular show, is all, remotely. I mean, they've been doing different versions of that before, where like either Stephen A. or Max Kellerman is not in the office, and essentially they have a guy they call in and they do video chat with one of the hosts. But now everybody's away. Now everybody has that weird quality. Everybody's kind of iffy about it. I'm sure Undisputed is doing the same. Get Up. It's changed the sports world faster than anything else I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, the draft is going to change. It's going to have to change. But let's go ahead and take our final break and then get into our division breakdown.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, so we're back to talk about finally the NFC West as we wrap up our divisional breakdown and wrap up the podcast simultaneously. So here we are. The NFC West, we have the LA Rams, we have the Seattle Seahawks, we have the San Francisco 49ers, the runner-up of the Super Bowl, and we also have the Arizona Cardinals. So we have two really strong playoff teams, technically three, but one didn't make it. But they were in the Super Bowl literally last year. So this division is very tough. Not to mention, newly acquired top 3 wide receiver in the NFL has joined the division for the Arizona Cardinals with a young team, a young group of guys, a really, really offensive-minded head coach. This division is going to be a bloodbath. A absolute bloodbath. Look at this,
definitely.
Bryce. Look at this,
Definitely.
Bryce. Look at this on paper. Russell Wilson, right?
Mm-hmm.
DK Metcalf, all their other weapons when Chris Carson comes back, and their defense, I would assume, would get better. They haven't decided if they're going to bring back Jadeveon. I don't know if they are or not. He's still on the market, by the way, Jadeveon Clowney. And then you move over the Rams. If they can figure it out, they can probably go find 2 running backs for cheap and make it work. And if they can get Jared Goff back on track to, at least look like he's worth half that contract, they have some really good wide receivers there, Brandon Cooks. They have, of course, Cooper Kupp. They just have some weapons, man. Everett out there at tight end. It's their offensive explosion waiting to happen. Of course, they still have Jalen Ramsey and the defensive back. They have the best defender in football in Aaron Donald. It's getting crazy. So then you have to go ahead. Runner-ups from last year's Super Bowl. Their defense is still going to be as strong as ever. Their offense has only lost Emmanuel Sanders, from my understanding. So if they retool in the draft and get some guys that, there's plenty of wide receivers in this draft, plenty of offensive threats. They get Jarrett McKinnon back from injury as well. They're going to be good. Like, they're probably going to be good for a long time now. And of course, the Cardinals, like I said earlier, they put it wasn't a franchise tag, but it was a transitional tag on Kenyon Drake. Of course, they fleeced the Texans for their best wide receiver, one of the top 3 in football, in DeAndre Hopkins. Still have Larry Fitzgerald being productive. They have some pretty productive, 3rd and 4th receivers as well. And their quarterback has a year under his belt, and he looked pretty good near the tail end. I don't know who comes out this division, to be honest. Who do you put your faith in?
I mean, honestly, I feel like right now you have to go with, if it was me, I have to go with Seattle just because they've been the most consistent, obviously, the last few years. Obviously, with Russell Wilson, they've usually always, won games. You feel like they're only going to get better. I feel like that everything points to them still being that team that's going to win about 10, 11 games, 12 games, maybe next year, and making it to the playoffs. Obviously, San Francisco will have to see what happens. Super Bowl hangovers can happen, so we don't know if that's going to affect them. Obviously, a lot of people still have the jury out on Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously not having the greatest showing in the Super Bowl, and everything, but we'll have to see what he does. He comes back as next year, and this will be his 3rd year in the system, and we'll have to see also what weapons they decide to put around him. Obviously, like you said, Emmanuel Sanders leaving, they have to replace him, because that could be a big hole on the wide receiving core. Obviously, with the Rams, the problem with the Rams is that they're old and they're overpaid. So it feels like, how can you really get better? So it's going to be very important for them to hit on draft picks, because that's usually who you're going to have to slide into some of these positions. Obviously, they're probably going to definitely need to get a guy who can replace Todd Gurley. They're going to need to improve the offensive line, because I feel like the offensive line eroded last year, which also made Jared Goff look worse. And I feel like if they could fix that and then get some things defensively, you think they should be better, or they should be fine, because you still got Aaron Donald, you got Jalen Ramsey, you got talent at every level. It's just more about shoring up some areas that maybe are not the strongest. And then obviously the Cardinals, I look at the Cardinals as the big wild card division. They're the team you don't know, because here's the thing with Kyler Murray and his talent, and then the way he played last year with Cliff Kingsbury, his offensive scheme and his offensive magic that he can create, you would think with this kind of a spread, air raid, whatever offense they're running, that with DeAndre Hopkins added into the fold, they have all the potential to light him up from the passing game next year and be at least one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL. So Arizona may be one of those games you always have to come into and have to outscore them. But at the same time, Arizona has their issues. Obviously, offensive line needs to be fixed. Defensively, they have a lot of problems. They got to get that fixed.
Right. They just they just traded Calais Campbell, their best interior defender for sure.
Exactly. So, they might have a plan. They might just feel like we're just going to draft a lot of young guys and we're going to do that. I know some people think I feel like, what I talked about, some people want to have that same success that the Falcons had in 2016 when they were able to hit on like 5 draft picks on defense. And that's why the defense was better that Super Bowl year. Because everybody wants that type of success, but because they haven't made too many moves in free agency. So in terms of like defensively, so I don't know if they're just taking their sweet time. They're not trying to overpay or anything like that. So it really just depends. I think Arizona's the wild card. I think Seattle's going to win the division. We'll have to see where San Francisco and not San Francisco and the Rams end up. It'll be interesting to see what happens with those two teams.
Where would you say the division rankings would be here? So like if you had who wins the division, who comes in second, third, and fourth?
I'm gonna go first Seattle. I'm going to go. Something? I'm going to go Arizona second, then San Francisco third, and the Rams fourth. Because I don't know. Here's the thing about the 49ers. What is their strength? Running the football, right? Because we think Jimmy Garoppolo can't throw or is not that great at it, right?
Yeah.
If they do not fix their receiving core and get somebody outside of George Kittle, if teams shut down the run, you have your formula to beat the 49ers. If they can't score that much, all you got to do is put up some type of points against their defense, and you can end up being in games where you can win. Remember, San Francisco was not good in a lot of late games last year.
Right.
So if you put them in those situations, that could result in way more losses this year for them. And, I mean, literally, I feel like it's one of those things, like I said, there's a year on you. We know what you do well. We're going to try to stop it next year. There's a jury out your quarterback. If he can't win these games, you're not winning them, which means that's going to be more losses for you, and that can set up an opportunity for them to be better. Because here's one thing that people forget. Arizona played the 49ers really well last year because they gave them issues because of their offensive scheme and offensive game plan.
Right.
So I feel like if Arizona can shore up their defense and get the offensive line at least better than what they were last year, I do not see why they couldn't be better as a team. It's easy to sit here and just say Arizona fourth because it's Arizona, but there's a lot. That's why I said they're a wild card. They could be the second team or they could be the last team. There's not a definitive they're going to be the worst team for sure, in my opinion.
I believe it. Let's end it there. I guess I'll give my my rankings real quick and then we'll head out of here. But I think that the 49ers will figure it out, and I think they're a lot better than they're a lot better to make another run than, let's say, the Seattle Seahawks right now, in my opinion. But I'll put them 1 and 2. I think they both make the playoffs. I think the Rams will be a solid third, and I think that Arizona will be fourth again, but they'll be competitive, a lot tougher, and they won't be a cakewalk as they kind of were in the early parts of the season last year. But that will be it for the GSMC football podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening. Don't forget to rate and review us, and don't forget to check out everything else on the GSMC podcast network, as we have plenty of content to keep you guys all engaged and entertained throughout this quarantine and this tough time. Hope everybody's staying inside, staying safe, and staying healthy. Please don't forget to follow us on our social media as we try to update and keep up with all the sports news. That would be our Facebook, our Instagram, and our Twitter. Any last words, Brice?
Yeah, just make sure you wash your hands out there, guys, and stay self isolated. And just stay safe out there. Stay safe out there.
All right. For Brice, this is Ethan. Thank you for listening. See you guys next week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.